bow, chicka, wow. Well, he turns into a black man.
Right.
But it's basically turned
because
into
a white man couldn't possibly be attracted to Uhura.
Right.
I guess.
I mean, it's just, that's a whole conversation.
Perhaps I could use this as an excuse to go to those far-off planets with little polka-dotted people if necessary, and be able to talk about love, war, nature, God, sex, all those things that go to make up the excitement of the human condition.
I'm Captain James Kirk.
Spock.
Your move, Captain. Jim Kirk of the Enterprise.
What's going on?
I'm James Kirk. These people are my friend and my shipmate. Leave my crew alone.
Out of the question.
How about that?
James Kirk.
It fits like a glove, Captain.
Oh, the bonehead ideas.
Gentlemen, I'm Captain James Kirk. Get out of my chair. Get out of it now.
My greetings and felicitations, Captain. So good of you and your officers to, drop in. Absolutely smashing.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Humanist Trek. It's a Star Trek podcast about the humanism in Star Trek. I'm Sarah Ray.
And I'm Allie Ashmead.
We're back to talk about The Man Trap. That is the first aired episode of the original series of Star Trek. Before we get to that, though, we were just kind of chatting about like moving to Colorado from Florida and like the housing market and how that has all been.
Yeah.
We're finally in our house now, and we got the furniture. Our bedroom furniture was delivered today, so that's super exciting.
Yay.
And they didn't mess up our record. Like I was worried that they might be really, really loud and banging and bumping around, but
I didn't hear.
I didn't even hear them. Yeah, so it was great. We just went up there, checked it out. Looks great. Super excited. But it has been a journey to get here. You moved out here before we did. We were both.
We've both pretty much
Coming from
decided.
Florida.
Yeah, I don't know. It was a complete coincidence that we were both like, "Fuck this! I'm out of here. I'm going to Colorado." It was a complete coincidence. But yeah, I remember I was I'm like, Sarah, I got some bad news.
We were doing a show about Florida.
Yeah. And I was like, I need to let you know I'm thinking about moving to Colorado. And then I think you said, so are we?
Yep.
And I'm like, are you shitting me? But yeah.
It was so funny.
Yeah.
And we'd never like met or hung out or
not really.
We did a show together because we were in different parts of Florida.
Yeah, I never met you face to face.
Yeah.
But when you've got a good connection with somebody, they're your people, you know. So
it was awesome that we both ended up.
And I'm like,
here.
yes. And then we started like thinking, okay, what can we do a show about? We got to start over again, so we can do anything we want. And this is how the show was born.
Yeah. So it was a journey. Like we sold our house, doubled our money, thought we were going to get, take that and buy a nice house out here. Turns out that's not how that works out here at all. I know you put in a ton of offers. We put in a ton of offers. Yeah. People were beating us out like with a $20,000 appraisal gap. Mm-hmm. Like you're going to pay $20,000 over what the house is valued at.
Yeah.
I can't compete with that.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I can, but I'll be looking at houses that are $100,000 and need lots of work.
Yeah.
So we lived in an Airbnb for a while, and then we lived in an apartment on the third floor, and we were way beyond living in apartments. I got my wife, 2 kids, a cat and a dog, and we bought some cheap mattresses from Walmart and threw them on the floor, and we were all like sleeping in a room together, and it's nice to not be doing that anymore. Climbing up 3 flights of stairs to get your groceries up and down.
That's the fucking worst.
Oh, it was the worst.
Oh.
I hated it. Every other apartment I've ever lived in has been a first floor apartment. Mm-hmm. For a reason. You want to stomp around above me? Fine.
Yeah.
But I am not carrying my shit up.
Yeah.
We didn't even buy furniture. Well, that's why we're getting furniture delivered. Like
no point.
We left.
You don't want to carry that shit up and then down again. And
nah, we left a bunch of stuff. When we left Florida, we drug like our old bed frame and like a whole bunch of stuff out to the end of the road, and we're just like, somebody come get it.
Yeah.
Because we traveled out here in our 2 Jeeps with like a U-Haul trailer, not a big U-Haul trailer either. So we had to pack our whole lives into these 2 U-Haul trailers. So there was a lot of stuff that just didn't come with us.
Yep.
And then we're finally at the place now where we're
yay
getting things back.
Yeah.
It's so good.
Now, my journey was a little different from yours. I moved here by myself with 2 cats, and That's a whole nother show with that ride, that drive up here with two fucking cats. That's a whole nother show. But I was able to sell my little house in Florida for a stupid amount of money, just because the market was going crazy everywhere. So I got really fortunate. But then I get here to look for houses, and I just literally had to battle with people I've never even met just to try to get a house. It was like dog eat dog. We're overbidding on the asking price.
So crazy.
And I lost. I think I lost out. Yeah, on about 7 houses, and finally got this one that I got. Now I did have to bid high, and I had to bid more than everyone else. And I think ended up being down to 3 people, and I finally they seemed like they liked me and they wanted to give it to me.
Nice. I
never met them, but I guess they communicate a lot with the realtor, and I had sold my house. They didn't have to wait for anything.
That was a big part.
They don't like doing contingent on the sale of your house. So I was like, hey, I got the money, so I was a sure thing, and so they went with me.
Yeah, if you have a contingency, like nobody will give.
Nobody wants to touch you. No. They want to sell their house.
Yep.
So, I got the house. Now, granted, it is built in 1975. It's a lot of house. And the people who lived there for a really long time, like maybe 30 years. So they had an opportunity to rig stuff, and maybe things aren't up to code. Plus I have a huge ass koi pond in the backyard, which I'm not a fish person.
Nope.
But I was like, I'll take it, but I really would like to rehome the fish so I don't kill them, because I'm not a fish person. And it's a lot of time and resource, water, know, and I just
we're out here where it's always a drought. We can't afford water for shit like that.
It's wasteful, and plus I really don't want to kill those fish. I don't want to be I think, what did you say, like a cage, like the cage,
like the cage. You're a keeper.
I don't want to be their keeper. I don't deserve fish. I don't deserve them. I think they'd just be better. They have a better chance at life somewhere else. So I can't release them in the wild because they will destroy the natural ecosystem.
Right.
But I do want to find.
There's a whole other conversation that we didn't go down on the cage that we don't have time to go down now, but maybe it'll come back again.
I'm sure it will.
The way I feel about the zoos and the way you feel about these damn fish.
Yeah.
Like, why am I okay with dogs and cats though?
I don't know, because they've been domesticated for years. I don't know. That's a good question.
Yeah.
Ooh, I feel I'm a bad human.
Right? I feel some type of way about that.
But come on, they'd fucking love it.
Yeah, they do.
They ain't miserable. They get fed.
Right?
Groomed.
See, but now we're making those same arguments of like, well, they have a nice life.
Oh, good. Oh, I hate being wrong.
I know. Doesn't it suck?
I hate being a hypocrite. I'm a total hypocrite when it comes to that. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Good point.
We're not going to think about that right now. So, well, let's get to the episode we came to talk about today. It is The Man Trap, the first broadcast episode of the original Star Trek series.
Sir, contact with an object. It's moving toward us. No visual contact yet.
Deflect towards full intensity.
Pursuit. Yes, Captain. Anything on your scanners?
It's coming at light speed.
Collision course. Visual contact.
Anything, over?
All wavelengths dominated by ionization effects, sir.
All engines full stop.
And we start out with the classic captain's log. We get our very first captain's log.
Yay!
And our very first star date.
Yep, 1513.1, which we don't really know what that means.
No, that doesn't. Those are just numbers.
Yep.
Somebody has tried to write them all down and figure out how far apart they are, but each number doesn't represent anything tangible.
So it doesn't equate to a year that we know. Right. I always thought that they had some equation to. I don't know.
I think the rule for the writers was just if the episode is in the future, you make the number bigger.
Okay.
There's not a lot of.
There's no
consensus around what the numbers mean.
Gotcha.
So we're orbiting planet M113.
Yep.
Spock is in command. We have a whole new crew.
Oh, that's right.
Spock is in command.
Forget everybody we talked about in the cage, because the only person that's around is Spock. Everybody else is
gone.
And then also, I want to mention before we get in there, I'm going to start a body count.
Yes.
Because Star Trek's known for like killing off like unknown crewmen. They haven't introduced the red shirt yet, but eventually they will. But
they're definitely killing off unknowns, though.
Oh yeah. So I'm starting a body count with this episode.
Awesome. And we'll do a nice little segment at the end to honor their lives. So Spock's in command. Our new captain, James T. Kirk, and our new doctor, Leonard McCoy, beam down to the planet. They're going to conduct some like routine annual medical evaluation on Robert and Nancy Crater, who are like archaeologists. Is kind of what I got.
There's apparently some ancient civilization down on this planet, and I guess they've been studying it for years. So,
but the problem here is that Nancy is Dr. McCoy's that girl, and he just can't get enough of her. So he's like all nervous and real kind of excited to see her again. You know, you get those butterflies in your first love or whatever. I don't know that it was his first love, but it was definitely an important love.
Well, God, I mean, look at his age. So it was only 12 years ago, and he's on up there. So I doubt it was his first love.
Right. So we have to talk a little bit about the set design. The show had like zero budget through the entire series,
1960s,
and so like classic Trek sets are a lot of styrofoam rocks that have been sculpted to look like shit, and then
they did a good job though.
This temple looking thing looked really good. This temple thing that they were living in, I guess, and doing their research, and then they set all of these kind of things against this weird colored background so that it doesn't look like a blue sky. And it's all on a soundstage. It's all interior.
Yeah.
But so they color and light the back so that it's like an orangey pink color on this particular one.
It's not an Earth horizon or whatever.
This is another science thing that nobody has talked about. We haven't talked about. But like the reason our skies are the color they are is the atmosphere, right? So if we're on a planet with a different atmosphere, how are we breathing?
Good point.
It's a TV
should be
show.
the same.
That's how.
Technically, should be the same color. I think, right?
Or close to it.
Yeah.
I would think so. I don't know.
Anyway, what do we know?
It's a TV show.
Yeah.
So, Kirk and McCoy go inside this sort of temple entrance looking thing, and they're talking about the one that got away. And in walks Nancy, and she's all young and beautiful, but we're treated to right away. We know what the mystery is that we're going to solve. Something's not right here.
Yeah.
Because each of the three of them are seeing a different version of Nancy.
Yeah. So I want to mention they brought along this poor unsuspecting crewman. You ought to know. Yeah, he's probably not going to make it.
Right.
So, his name is Crewman Darnell. I don't know his rank. That's not really important.
No, doesn't matter.
So Nancy, to McCoy, she looks 25.
Just like he saw her when they last saw each other.
12 years ago. She looks like he's like, you haven't aged a day. But then Kirk sees kind of like a grandma type figure where she's got gray hair, matronly kind of woman. And then this poor UC, is about to explode because he sees this young blonde woman who's looks like somebody he met on a pleasure planet or something. So he's like really, really hot for her. But they don't know. We know that they're seeing different women, but they don't know at this point that they're seeing completely different women.
We get a bit of a little character story here that never really comes back up again beyond this episode, where apparently Nancy's nickname for Dr. McCoy was Plum.
Yep.
And Kirk kind of gives him a little, chides him a little bit about that, but then it's never brought up again.
Yeah. I've never heard it. I don't remember.
That was weird. Yeah. So Nancy scampers off to go find her husband. And then when we pop back outside, she's Blondie again and flirting it up real hard with Darnell. And then she like part of her clothing and tosses it at him and then seductively scampers off.
Oh, and of course, what's he going to do? He's going to follow because he's, thinking with glands. I don't know. But that's kind of like, that's what she wanted.
And then we fade to theme.
Now, I do want to mention that the guy playing Darnell, I recognized him as someone who played on the soaps when I was growing up. He's super young there. He's got to be like 20s.
Mm-hmm.
And it's Michael Zaslow. If you ever watched The Guiding Light, he was on The Guiding Light.
I was at All My Children. I mean, my mom watched soaps, right? And so I watched whatever she was watching, but she never really got into Guiding Light. So it was All My Children for me.
Love Guiding Light. So this guy, he played a super villain, like Roger Thorpe was his name.
Okay.
But yeah, and even though he was evil, he was really good looking. So we loved him. But so it was.
So
really
you were
cool.
like, "Ooh, I know that guy."
Yeah, I was like, even though he's young, some things don't change, and I was like, I know him. But yeah.
So we've got ourselves a mystery episode here, and Kirk does a supplemental log that reveals that now they know that they're each seeing a different version of Nancy.
Right.
And in the temple, Dr. Crater arrives and he's all grumpy. He's like the classic old man, any old man that you ever try to get to go to a doctor. He doesn't trust him. He doesn't want to waste his time. I'm fine. I don't need no doctors. And they quote some regulation at him. And so he's like, fine, whatever, do your scan.
Mm-hmm.
And here we get our first real good look at the medical tricorder, which has become a very iconic Trek thing.
Yep.
And even like when we were talking about the communicator and how that influenced the phone,
right?
Cell phones. This is a thing that like even today there are organizations that are trying to develop the technology to like scan with your cell phone, so that our watch, we're wearing Apple Watches, and it'll tell you the blood oxygen level and my heart rate and all of that shit. So like
sleep levels, like are you an REM sleep or deep sleep or light sleep? Yeah.
I even have an app that tells me like at the end, like how well did you sleep?
Mm-hmm.
And that's Star Trek technology. Like
on a small scale, but if we, it is. It totally is.
It's insane how much like Trek has influenced technology over the years. And I think that's awesome. So the medical tricorder thing, bring that to reality. I think that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
So Crater is like, wait, did you say McCoy? Like Leonard McCoy? Like the McCoy that Nancy's always talking about? Shit.
Yeah.
So it is the same McCoy.
Yep.
And there's a little discussion here about how old Nancy actually looks.
Right.
And Crater slips a little bit here. He says, when she lets you see, I mean, when you see her again.
Oops.
Because
but I don't think they caught it.
No,
they didn't caught it because I think Kirk was like, so Doc was like, oh, she still looks 25, and Kirk is like, no, I mean, she had some gray, and she's like, no, she's a handsome woman, and they don't. I don't know that I want to be called handsome, but that's what they called women back then. She says she's handsome, but hardly 25. And then her husband says that McCoy saw Nancy with the eyes of his past attachment. So maybe that's why there's such a difference. But he knows what's happening, and he almost, not quite, but almost lets it slip.
Almost. So, but we're starting to now reveal bits and pieces of what's actually going on here. So McCoy continues his medical evaluation, and then he tries to put a tongue depressor in Crater's mouth. And this is like, maybe
that's why we all hated doctors so much, because they're always trying to stick something somewhere. Like in the future seems so much easier. They ain't got to touch you. Right.
Yeah.
But maybe that's what it is. They're always sticking something somewhere.
We also get like, this is kind of a foreshadowing too of McCoy's character, right? Where he kind of like not a big fan of transporters. Like technology's great and all, but I'm still a good old fashioned doctor, and I'm going to do doctoring things.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a little bit of his character kind of shining through.
And he stays consistent. He never does get he hates the transporter. Like that never changes.
So we're interrupted. Nancy's screaming outside. We go outside and we find Nancy weeping over Darnell, who's like laying up on the rock ledge. And this is a fantastic bit of makeup here. I just love this so much.
It's so bad. It's so bad it's good.
His face looks like he's been to the Chinese medicine place where they do cupping. Cupping is, if you don't know, they take this like glass bulb thing that's open on one side and they like put heat into it and it creates pressure, and then they put that on your skin and it like suctions onto your skin and it leaves these big red circles all over. And I had it done on my back. It feels really good.
Yeah.
The medicine that they claim, like the medical claims they make about it, is kind of horseshit. Like they say that it like draws the blood towards your like up into your skin to allow fresh blood to flow underneath of it. But what it does is it breaks the capillaries.
Yeah, it's kind of like a bruise in a way, but not. It's a more superficial.
It's a hickey. Like it is the same thing that happens when you suck on somebody's neck and leave a hickey.
And that's never had any health benefit for me. I mean.
No. But I would go. My wife talked me into going one time, and it feels kind of like a massage because it's like suctioning on.
The pain feels good. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you like doing it, fine, but there's no real like medical anything behind it. But that's what this guy's face looks like. He has cupping all over his face.
Yeah. And it also kind of looks like someone's kissed him a bunch of times. But in
a bunch of face hickeys
with a circle mouth. But yes, he's been sucker faced, and then they found something in his mouth, like a green plant, something or other. It looked like a wad of green something.
It's like spearmint gum.
It was really green.
Kirk like reaches in and does that finger sweep thing that you do when you're doing CPR.
Yeah,
and he pulls out a piece of spearmint gum.
Yep. Oh, and then. What do we get to hear McCoy say for the first time?
The very first time, he's dead, Jim.
Ugh. Yep.
Classic.
Got me.
Yes.
Got me.
So Nancy's alibi, she's like, look, I was just out looking for Dr. Crater. I did nothing to do with this.
Yeah.
I saw Darnell and he was about to put some spearmint gum in his mouth. And so I was like, no, don't. But he'd already done it. And so then he died.
I found him like this, Yeah. She's like, and she said, she said she found him with a Borgia plant in his hand, which is some plant that's like native to this planet.
Right.
But I guess, she's looking at McCoy. McCoy's looking at her, and she's like, why don't you believe me? Because he's looking at her like she doesn't believe
He's got some skepticism on his face.
Yeah. And I think he's staring at her because he sees her true self with the gray hair. And he's just like, what? Wait, what? And I think she just accidentally let that slip because she was distraught. So she's a good actress. I don't know.
That could be. So Dr. Crater's trying to get them to leave again. Like his whole thing is like, get out of my planet. Please go away. We're fine.
Get off my lawn. Get off my lawn.
You kids in your rap, your hip hop music.
You kids in your tricorders and your medical mumbo jumbo. Get off my lawn.
God. So they decide to delay the medical evaluations until tomorrow, and Kirk radios up to the Enterprise to beam back up. And we get another odd little breadcrumb here where Nancy asks, like, oh, hey, wait a minute. Did you get our request?
Yeah.
We had to put in a special request for something.
Yeah, we had asked for some salt, and I was wondering, can we get some extra salt?
Right? Like when the waitress comes to the table and I'm like, you guys need anything? Are you good? How's the food? Oh, I need salt.
Yeah. And then they never bring it.
Back on the Enterprise, Spock is still in command, and Uhura comes down. We get to see Uhura for the very first time.
She is working it with Spock. So like she's almost. So Spock is pointing out an error that Uhura made, and she's just trying to joke with him and make conversation, but he doesn't get it. He's just like of course he's a Vulcan. He has no sense of humor. He has.
Yep. This is our first real like logical Vulcan version of Spock that we've come to know and love.
Yeah. So I think in the cage we saw him smiling. I was like, oh no, that's wrong.
Not right.
That's wrong. He doesn't smile. So this is more the Spock that we all are very familiar with. Just deadpan. He doesn't laugh.
No emotion.
So Uhura is just trying
She's
her
like
hardest to flirt with him.
Throwing herself at him.
Yeah. And I think it's cute though.
Yeah, for sure. It's just like a fleeting conversation.
Yeah.
And then they're interrupted by a call from the transporter room. We've got the away team's back, one dead, and Uhura lights up Spock here for not showing any emotion. She's like, Kirk's the closest thing you've got to a friend. One of these people is dead. We don't know which one. It could be him.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
And he's like the closest thing you have to a friend, which I love because
still no emotion.
That really develops into what we know, carried on to the end of these characters is that they really do have a friendship that they've developed.
Yeah.
So this is kind of like the first seed of that I thought was great. Down in sick bay, McCoy and Kirk are investigating Darnell's cause of death, and Spock Skypes down and tells him about the spearmint gum. It's like it's like nightshade, right? So it's not good stuff. It'll make you sick. It'll kill you.
Right.
But it doesn't have a side effect of cupping marks all over your face.
Yeah. It's supposed to cause, so was it the nightshade? Our Earth form of nightshade is supposed to cause alkaloid poisoning.
Yeah.
But McCoy doesn't see any signs of this. And so he's like, this guy shouldn't technically be dead. But Kirk is like, okay, you got to find out what killed him.
And he tries to wants to talk about seeing Nancy as a young woman again. But Kirk's like, we have a dead guy here. We need to figure this out, okay?
Yeah, wind your neck in,
So we come into another captain's log, and then Uhura gets a call from their next mission, and they're like, yo, where you guys at?
Yeah.
We need these supplies right away. But they're going to stick around because they've got a dead crewman and they're trying to investigate what's going on.
Right.
Spock's done some more research on these crater people.
Yeah. Yeah. He found that they'd been on the planet for like 5 years. And because they're archaeologists, they dig up artifacts and they ship them out. So there's been regular vessels visiting and shipping out artifacts until the last year. So somehow that drop in shipments has happened over the last year. But then, McCoy, he discovers something.
And this is so weird because he calls up on the radio and he's like, hey, I found something, but I don't want to say it over the speaker.
like I guess
what?
Just trying to create drama.
It is. And it was trying to get everybody down into the sick bay or wherever. But I would have maybe rewritten that to say something like, hey, I found something. You guys should probably come take a look.
Yeah.
Right? I don't want to say it over the speaker is weird. It's not classified information. It's not it's not a folder at Mar-a-Lago or anything.
Good one.
Yep.
And we'll just leave that there.
And we'll just leave that right there. So everybody heads down to sickbay, and I don't know if it was sickbay or not because later they say they call or something, and they call it the dispensary, and the dispensary is something very different for us.
Yes, here in Colorado, that means something totally different, and it's not a bad thing.
And I'm down to go to the dispensary.
Yeah,
they're actually the place we go. Green Dragon is having a BOGO sale.
Nice
on gummies.
Nice.
Yeah.
Cool.
I do prefer the gummies though, over smoking marijuana.
Yeah.
I
do both. It depends on what I need.
So I don't know if it's because I smoked for so long because I smoked cigarettes for a carton a week for a long, long time. And that was really hard to quit.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
But I don't know if it just doesn't taste good to me. If I just haven't had the right stuff,
it could be
because it if it just tastes like an ashtray, I'd rather have a gummy.
Yeah, I mean, I go depending on how I want to feel.
Mm-hmm.
If I eat a gummy, I know I'm gonna go to sleep.
Yeah.
If I want to get either I want to be creative.
Mm-hmm.
I want to sit and watch something and laugh my ass off, or I want to be productive and clean my entire house and all that. That's when I'll smoke because I don't get that with the gummies. And it also depends on the strain.
Right.
But yeah.
I vaped too.
Yeah.
And that does it. But
not the same
It's
as
not the same.
actual bud. I mean, it's like probably a third of I feel the potency of actual bud.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so this gives you a nice high, but it's very even but it's still light.
Right.
Bud, oh my God. I'm sitting, sometimes I've taken a hit and I'm sitting there contemplating my life because, oh my God, why did I do this? It's so intense and so much better.
Yeah. So Kirk and Spock head down to sick bay, which may not be sick bay, maybe the dispensary.
That's how we got on this conversation.
And that's where we learn that all of the salt in Darnell's body has been leached out. McCoy can't explain it, but Kirk remembered that the Craters had mentioned needing salt.
Like, hey.
So they get together another landing party to beam back down. And of course, this landing party also includes some more poor schmucks.
I know. Okay. We got Darnell has already kicked the bucket he's been sucker faced.
Mm-hmm.
So now we got these poor other two UCs that are coming down. Sturgeon and Green are their names. They actually have names later on in the Star Trek universe. We don't even care about their names. They don't even get names. But yeah.
So they're back on the planet. They're questioning the professor, and they're like demanding to see Nancy, but he doesn't know where she is either. So the one poor schmuck goes to find Nancy, and other one,
that bitch is always missing. She's always missing.
Mm-hmm. And that's not the red flag that everybody's like, why can't we ever find this lady? Mm-hmm. So the one goes to find her, and then the other one goes to beam up a sample of the spearmint gum back to Spock so that he can analyze it and see what's going on.
Every time you say spearmint gum, it just makes me laugh.
Crater keeps trying to get them to leave like that. Again, that's his thing. Like, look, you guys just get out of here. Mm-hmm. We don't need you here, but we could use some salt. And we started out with 25 pounds of salt.
Right.
And then he pulls out this I Dream a Genie bottle that has like a little handful of salt tablets in the bottom.
Was it tablets or some kind of crystal?
Yeah, it was like a tablet.
Mm-hmm.
And then fucking McCoy shakes one out into his hand and goes to lick it. Like, what the hell, man? You
should know better.
We just lost a dude to the spearmint gum, and now you're gonna lick the salt. But
supposedly, allegedly licking something.
Right.
Yeah.
But he licks it, and he's like, "Yep, it's salt." Like, what would have happened if he'd have just died right then?
Yeah. No more McCoy.
No more McCoy. So Kirk and Spock get on the radio, and they arrange quarters for the Craters because they're all going to beam up.
Right.
And while they're talking, the professor runs off. Just like runs away.
Like, oh, fuck that. I'm not going back. I'm not going to that ship. Then Robert encounters the number two, the dead UC. And he's got marks on his face. And this is Sturgeon at this point. So this is Sturgeon has sucker mark. He's been sucker faced. And so Robert like kind of just like starts yelling for Nancy. Nancy, where are you? And then he says, oh, hey, I got salt.
I got the good stuff over here.
Salt in my hand. Anyway, and but she doesn't answer because she's busy leaning over another body, poor Green.
Mm-hmm.
And he's also been sucker faced and he's dead too.
Yep. So Nancy's standing over Green and then turns into Green. So now we know we're dealing with a shapeshifter.
She's a shapeshifting, salt-eating bitch. Yeah.
So Kirk insists, like, let's go back to the ship and try to find Nancy from there because we can cover more ground from, like, high-tech scanners on the ship than we can, like, walking around down here.
Well, before that, though, they go out, run after Robert, and he runs away from the dead body, and then they find the dead body. They find Sturgeon.
Yes.
And they're like, oh no, another sucker face. We lost another one. And so they don't see Green anywhere, so they call for Green.
Yeah.
And then fake Green comes in and says, hey, I found this dead body also, and I went looking.
I was looking for
the killer.
Yeah.
Oh, that sounds lame, but yeah, but that's what he said. And he's kind of just staring all creepily. We know the audience knows that ain't green.
Right.
But he's trying to act normal, but yeah.
So Kirk says we should go back to the ship and try to find Nancy from there because it's easier to use like the high-tech scanner stuff on the ship than it would be to just walk around. And there's a great line here where Kirk tells McCoy he needs to be more like Spock and stop thinking with his glands. I just thought that was hilarious.
Yep.
So Kirk, McCoy, and Shapeshifter Green beam up, and now we've got a shapeshifter loose on the Enterprise.
Yep. And Kirk and McCoy have no idea.
Nope.
Yeah.
So up in the transporter room, Kirk sends McCoy to go get some sleep. He says, we're going to go look for the craters. You need to rest. So
Meanwhile, like fake Green is like Jones of Assault. He's like, he breaks away from them and he's just like, okay. He's like, I'm just providing some inner monologue. He's like, okay, where can I get some salt? I'm jonesing really bad. And then he runs into Yeoman,
Yeoman
Janice,
Rand. Yep.
Janice Rand.
Yep.
And she happens to have a tray of food, and what's on the tray but a salt shaker.
And why would there be a salt shaker on an Enterprise on a spaceship
when you can replicate your food?
Tell the story?
Yeah, because you can replicate your food.
Yeah.
And but yeah, whatever. He's just staring at her. He's not saying anything, and he's staring at the tray.
It's creepy.
And she goes and sprinkles salt in her food, and he reaches for it, and she smacks his hand and like says something to him, like, you know, keep your hands to yourself or whatever. But then she goes into the lift, and he follows her.
And I also think this episode is like the first time we're seeing the inside of the turbo lift.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think so. Yeah. In the first episode, we saw them like step into it and the doors closed, but now we're like camera inside the turbo lift. I think this is the first time.
Yeah. I mean, she gets off and then she kind of, I love this line. She's like, why don't you go chase an asteroid?
Love that.
I'm just that's going to be my line.
But then they're like, as she walks away, then there's like some more classic misogyny bullshit where these guys, there's like 3 other crewmen standing there that are like
snickering,
catcalling and shit.
Yeah.
Like one of them says something like, oh, I wish I had a personal yeoman to come do all of my blah, 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 whatever. And like, okay.
Gag.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was rife full of that kind of shit.
Yeah.
So she's actually on her way to see Sulu, which is the first time we've seen Sulu, and he is like surrounded by plants in the botany lab. Or,
sure, something like that.
They were still figuring shit out, so that's where they put him.
Well, okay, so if you don't have, because at the time we haven't learned anything about like replicators or whatever, right? So we're growing plants, we're growing food, we're all of that kind of stuff. That kind of makes sense, and that
good point.
That comes back in later series too with like the hydroponics bay and stuff like that. Yeah, with
Neelix, and they love their So she's bringing Sulu some food,
and also Sulu should be on the bridge. Like
that's what I'm saying. Is
we know Sulu to be a bridge officer,
right? That's what I'm saying. How did he end up as a botanist? I don't know. Like I said, they're still figuring things out. Maybe they come up with an explanation of how he ends up as the science. Was it one engineer? Something.
He's the
navigator.
Navigator. Oh,
I don't know.
Pilot and navigator, Chekhov and.
Oh, that's right.
But I don't know which one's which, Sulu.
Shit, I don't know. Either way.
Send us emails. Oh, my God.
Yeah. So anyway, so they're chit-chatting about his plans, and they've got this one plan in there. You and I think, had the same thought.
Feed me Seymour. Feed me all night long.
It's just kind of like a Venus flytrap on steroids, but it's cute.
Right. It's cute. Really, it's like cute. Pink and fluffy, and
it makes little cute little noises. And it moves. And Janice calls it Beauregard, and then Sulu insists that it's a Gertrude. It's a female. So they have this conversation, which I think we talk about is
if neither of them. Well, here's the thing: if either of them is a botanist,
right,
then you should be able to sex the plant,
right?
I would think.
100%.
But also like. There is a conversation that to be had, and they mentioned something about like it's stupid giving like gendered names and pronouns to inanimate objects.
Yeah.
Like, why do we call a ship she?
Yeah.
She's a fine ship. Like, that's stupid.
Yeah.
And why we do that is stupid. And they didn't really dig into it a whole lot more than that. It was just kind of a glance, but
it's an insight into human nature. We do
Yeah.
it. We just have this need to like assign something to a label.
like, people name their cars all the time. I've never been a car naming person. Like, my cars don't have names.
Yeah.
But I know a lot of people name their cars. I don't get that.
And
either.
it's usually a female name. I don't know.
Yeah, I agree.
I have no idea. But
So meanwhile, Shapeshifter Green is still creeping through the hallways like a creep. And he follows them into the botany lab and he starts drooling over the salt shaker again.
Yep.
And Audrey 3 starts freaking the fuck out. It's like squeaking and it
calling,
and it like pulls itself down into the base of the plant.
Yeah. And I guess that's for some reason why we don't know why that scares Green off, but fake Green, he just runs away without.
Right.
He didn't even get no salt. He could have got salt from the tray, but he didn't get no salt because of a plant. I don't get it.
Right. Yeah, that was kind of weird.
Yeah.
Again, telegraphing for the audience, the plant knows that this isn't the real Green. Okay.
Like,
whatever.
Why? Like, they had to have something.
And then from like here on, and we might have seen it before, but I really started noticing it here when Green is out in the hallway. Then they start doing this visual language for I'm jonesing for salt, which is to like bite
your knuckle. And that is kind of like sexy.
It is.
Like,
when you're like, you see some hot little something and you're like,
I've never bitten my knuckle.
No,
like
that's not a natural
stupid
response.
It's kind of silly.
Yeah. I think it's
an
like
overdramatic
Hollywood TV language.
It's porn. It's porn language. Bite your knuckle. But yeah, so he's hunting for salt again, and is this where he sees
he bumps into Uhura?
And,
yeah.
Oh, and then he he turns into a black man.
Right.
But it's basically turned
because
into
a white man couldn't possibly be attracted to Uhura.
Right.
I guess.
I mean, it's just, that's a whole conversation because it was appropriate at that time.
Right.
They were not about to. It wasn't. I think that kiss with them happened in 1969, so they weren't there.
We're
yet.
not ruffling feathers yet.
Yeah. So so they had to make him into a black man. They had to.
Yeah.
So yeah, but he's like someone from her mind, like all his features. And that's why she's like, well, you look familiar.
Mm-hmm.
And but he looks like he's about to pounce on her. Like he just wants some salt. But he also speaks to her in Swahili, which is her native language, and so she's like all in. She's like having some fanny flutters and everything going on. So she's almost in a trance, and she gets called from the bridge. She kind of ignores it.
He's got her like pinned up against the wall.
Yeah, it was a bit.
It was a lot
cringe, and then Sulu and Janice or Yeoman Rand step out of the elevator. And that kind of just like wakes her up. And then she's like, okay, I've got to get to the bridge.
Yep. So then we jump to McCoy's quarters. He's not sleeping. So he calls up to the bridge. And I really don't understand what this call was for. Like, other than like Kirk was like, hey, we haven't found anything yet. Go back to sleep. Like, otherwise, what?
I guess that would, the only thing I can think of is the setup for the pill.
Right.
Because otherwise it has no purpose.
Right. So Kirk says, go back to sleep, take a red pill.
Do you want to know what it is?
No.
Very Matrix reference.
And then Kirk takes what looks like a piece of this spearmint gum and pops it into his mouth. Like, Kirk, what the hell are you doing, man? Like, everybody's putting stuff in their mouth.
Yeah, I know, right? The red pill, the Borsley plant, whatever.
Back in the hallway, shapeshifter random crewman now comes across a guy who, and this is a great look, and I don't remember seeing much more of this like into the series, but I guess we'll find out. But it was like this guy had on like a NASA like sparkly kind of
the old school
go outside into spacesuit.
Spacewalk, yeah.
Yeah. And I don't think we see a whole lot more of that. going forward. So I thought that was interesting. On the bridge, Kirk and Spock decide they're going to go back for Dr. Crater and get him to explain where the hell Nancy is. And it wasn't spearmint gum that he popped into his mouth while McCoy was on the phone. He's got a plate of that. You know that when you have like a class or a meeting for work like early in the morning and they give you like coffee and like the continental breakfast. That's it. Like little. It's a little fresh fruit medley thing. Yeah, that's what it was. It was like that. It was there's some melon and there's some strawberries and maybe some blueberries.
Space food. Yeah, and I think it was like crunchy because I think every time he would take a bite,
it crunched.
I think it was crunchy.
Huh. Still, everybody putting weird shit in their mouths. Shapeshifter random crewman comes across McCoy's quarters, and I thought this was interesting too. That I find you see these signs above like the turbo lift and stuff, but it really caught my attention at McCoy's quarters, and it's got those like nameplates from like when your office makes you a desk nameplate.
Oh my god! Yep, I still have my original desk plate with my name on it from 1999.
Oh wow.
It was like my first legit office job, not like the call center jobs. This was like legit, like okay, I've made
I work in an office.
I work in an office, yeah, office space type job, TVS reports, all that. And it has like they all have the same font. They're all got that stick on, you know.
Oh yeah. Well, then I think like in later series, your name's not on the door.
No.
It's like cabin numbers or whatever.
I don't think there's anything on the doors.
Yeah.
You just know, like, hey, that's Kirk's cat. I don't know.
Right.
I don't ever remember seeing a label on a door.
So anyway, they go, they're outside McCoy's quarters. So the shapeshifter turns into Nancy again, and McCoy steps out. And then they go back into his quarters, and she really starts like laying the moves on him, and then she talks him into taking the red pill. What the hell, like, McCoy?
Oh, you're so tired. You look so tired.
You need to sleep.
Yeah, let's take a chill.
She's
knock
like,
your ass out.
She's like, I want to wear you out, but I don't want to wear you out. You need to sleep first. So he takes the red pill, and then out in the hallway. Rand and Sulu and all of these people seem to just be like wandering around the ship aimlessly. Yeah. Because now they come across spacesuit guy.
Dead guy.
And he's dead, and he's been to the cupping doctor, and he's got cupping marks all over his face.
Sucker face.
I can't keep track of like which hallway who's been walked down and where everybody's at. Because there's a lot of hallways on the Enterprise, but it seems like we're all in the same one.
What a coincidence. But so they take him down, I guess, to 6 Bay or dispensary, whatever we're calling it. and then they page just a general medical and down to sick bay. But then I think by this time that red pill is starting to kick in, and he is like, I'm feeling good, and I'm about to go to sleep, and then I'll wake up later and have some munchies. But he's about out.
But Nancy is like sitting there, you know, sweet talking him, like close your eyes and go to sleep, and then the crazy thing, she like takes her fingers and like wipes the sweat off of his brow, and then goes to lick it. And that's when Uhura calls down. Like, she's going to lick the salt out of his sweat. And so then Uhura calls down specifically for McCoy. Like, before it was like, hey, all doctors and medical personnel report, whatever. And now this time it's like, yo, I'm calling Dr. McCoy because you didn't respond.
Right.
Dr. McCoy, where are you at?
Yep.
So, of course.
What's she going to do?
She's got to turn into McCoy and be McCoy now.
Yeah.
So
now, she could have killed him.
She could have.
I can only guess why she didn't, because it's not really a she. It's a thing.
We don't even know if that species has gender. We have no idea.
But I'm assuming maybe it has feelings, and maybe she didn't kill McCoy then because
everybody else she's killed him.
Yeah. She's just dropping bodies, let the bodies hit the floor like everywhere. But she didn't kill him. She just made sure he went to sleep. And then. took his identity. And
interesting choice.
Yeah, so she was fake McCoy for a little while.
So we're back on the planet. Kirk and Spock corner Professor Crater, and they're
this
like,
motherfucker,
where's your
slippery?
wife? And nobody can find your wife.
They're both slippery as fuck.
So Sulu radios down and says, hey, we found another cupping victim. And then Spock goes around a corner and he finds Crewman Green, also a cupping victim.
And they're like, hey, wait a minute. Didn't he go with us on the...
So now we know it wasn't Green that transported up. So Kirk calls for a general quarters lockdown, intruder alert. And then we have a little bit of like a kind of a standoff between
we got a fight.
Crater and Kirk and Spock. Yeah, they didn't really have like a good old Star Trek fist fight or anything.
No, Robert just couldn't hang. I don't think Robert Crater couldn't hang, but he starts shooting at him, and then Kirk...
But he's not trying to kill them. He's just trying to like scare him away. The whole thing, this whole time, has been like, you just get off my planet.
Get the fuck off. Get off my lawn. Yeah.
You kids and your hip hop and your
phasers and your
phasers. Back on the bridge, they're trying to account for everyone going to quarters. So they're like, deck 5, are you everybody in? And Rand mentions that Shapeshifter Green was following her earlier and being all creepy. And Uhura's like, there was a weird, creepy guy following me around too. Maybe it's the alien.
Yeah. Of course they look different.
Right. And meanwhile, like Shapeshifter McCoy is right there.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, maybe I can help.
Yeah. He's like, I want to help with the creature. Maybe we should just give him some salt.
Give him some salt.
That's what he needs to survive. And Spock's like, huh? Why are you being so nice to this creature?
So on the planet where Kirk and Spock, and this is where I really noticed that like that they had dumped some sand inside the studio because they're like, okay, you go that way and I'll go this way and we'll come around him, flank him, and they're like army crawling through the sand, and it's like legit sand on the floor of the sand stage. Yeah, that's crazy. There's probably still sand in that sand. There's no way they got rid of it all.
Yeah.
You can clean. Have you ever tried to clean sand out of your car? Like you go to the beach, you never get all the sand.
Even with a vacuum. Yeah.
So they distract the professor. They shoot him. They stun him. And then he finally fills them in. He lets it spill.
Yeah.
Nancy's the last of her kind. It's not really Nancy.
Yeah.
And then he talks about like the buffalo on Earth and how there used to be millions of those, but they were eradicated because that's what humans are good at.
Yeah.
And that's the same with like whatever this creature that Nancy is. She's the last of her species.
Yeah. And so he referred to his wife in past tense because she had died, or I guess this creature had killed her like 1 or 2 years ago. But they need salt to stay alive. And
then there's almost again like a line that felt like a throwaway line, but it was really, I think sums up the episode, is like about a creature having a right to survive. Like who are we to?
We have a right to survive.
Into species or whatever.
We don't we shouldn't be ending species, but we do. We do all the time.
Right.
Or we are indirectly the cause of it.
Right.
Yeah.
So now we know these creatures just need salt to survive, but ran out of salt. And there's only one left.
What a thing.
Right? Salt.
Yeah.
So now we're up to General Quarters level 4, and I couldn't really tell a difference between level 3 and level 4. Like the whole thing is just everybody go to your quarters and lock your doors.
Right.
So I don't notice a difference there. But then there's a meeting in the conference room, and they're trying to work out, like, how do we find this creature? They put some salt bait out all over the ship.
Yeah.
But it's not attracting it because the shapeshifter, Salt Sucker, is sitting right there in the room with them.
Oh, that's right. And they have no clue. And he's being, like, quiet and super creepy with just looking around. And at that point, they had already brought Robert back. And they're like, I think Kirk's like, Robert, would you be able to recognize the creature? Even though it might look different, would you recognize the creature? And And I don't know what he said. If he just said, I don't know, or maybe Kirk thought that.
He was like, yeah. Oh, yeah, I would recognize it.
Okay.
But
why?
So then McCoy and the professor start kind of riffing back and forth about like, this creature's not really a threat. It's just trying to survive. Like it just needs food. So give it some food.
McCoy was showing like an uncharacteristic compassion.
Mm-hmm. and signaling to Robert that I'm the one. It's me.
Do you think he got it?
I think he did.
Okay, maybe that's why Kirk didn't really believe Robert, and so he's like, we're gonna stick you with some truth serum, which is so stupid. Antiquated. Like that's what they like back in the 70s and 80s. We're gonna shoot you up with truth serum. That was like a thing. I don't even think that even works.
No. Well, that's another like one of the unscientific moments here. Like there's not really such a thing as a truth serum, and even like when you do like lie detector tests, they're not all that.
No, they're not
accurate. Yeah. Shapeshifter McCoy, Spock, and the professor all leave.
Yeah, because they're gonna go give some truth serum to Robert.
Right, so they're going down to the dispensary to get them some truth serum.
I bet that's what. Some truth serum.
So, and then we cut to an alert that calls Kirk down to the dispensary, and this is when I really noticed like the dispensary. Like by that time I had turned the captions. I usually watch with captions on because
always. I don't always hear, and I always do.
And everybody do this. Watch with captions on, because if for no other reason, like if you don't think you need them, fine. But like normalize watching shows with captions because hearing impaired people need them, and like we should be making that a standard.
Yeah, I agree. I watch nothing without captions.
Yep, I'm the same way.
I don't know why. It just I
take it in better. Like
me too. I was gonna say I process
don't miss
it better
anything. Yeah,
when I see it on because a lot of times something is muffled.
Yeah, or real quiet. And what'd they say?
I want to. I'm also a chronic Googler. So if they're talking about something and I'm like, I'll pause and I'll Google it. And it's nice to know how to spell it. I'm terrible. It's very hard to watch a show with me.
Yep.
Because I'm like, pause. I need to Google that. But yeah, or I need to Google that actor or actress. Anyway, go ahead.
So this was the moment that I was like, dispensary. What the hell?
Yeah.
I thought we were going to sick bay. So I guess they're two different places. I don't know. So the creature attacks Spock, but doesn't kill him.
Right.
And Yeoman Rand finds Professor Crater, and he's got cupping marks all over his face now. And then Spock talks about how he's fortunate that his ancestors like spawned in different oceans than humans did.
Right. His physiology is like keeps him from like
it's a different kind of salt,
being sucker faced.
Yeah.
So
which I thought was cool because it's a nod to that evolutionary history of water creatures evolving into land creatures. And I had to look this up because I couldn't remember the timeline, but it was 2006 when they discovered Tiktaalik, which is like an ancestor species that they believe was not a missing link, because that word doesn't really communicate everything about it, but or a transitional species, something like that, but cool. Was an ancestor species of, an animal that lived in the water and then evolved into a land animal.
It wasn't the salamander?
Don't think so. I mean, it might have been like
a salamander was
in
like
the
a
evolution
big worm
in the chain
that jumped out of the. I remember just learning that we were like salamanders. I don't know.
I don't remember.
This Virginia schooling. What do you expect?
Anyway, Spock's blood salt is different. So, and there was a problem I had here too, because like, why would this salt sucking creature be specifically attuned to Earth salt?
Good point. Yeah.
And is it iodized salt? Is it Himalayan pink salt? Is it
sea salt?
Sea salt? Like, what kind of salt are we talking about here?
Yep.
So I thought that was kind of weird. So the shapeshifter turns back into Nancy, in McCoy's quarters and like wakes him up. She's freaking out, begging him for like, help me. They're trying to kill me. Mm-hmm.
They're trying to kill me.
And then Kirk and McCoy get in a standoff, and Kirk tries to lure the shapeshifter with salt. And he does this thing with like when you call a dog with a treat, and he's like, "Come on, come get the salt. Got some salt for you. Come on, come on."
It was.
He's like leaning over and everything. It was weird.
This kind of bothered me because I'm like, okay, I know that's supposed to be a creature, but like it's kind of like
still a person,
meaning a little bit, but whatever.
So then shapeshifter Nancy goes after Kirk. And McCoy refuses to shoot. He's like, "This is the monster. Shoot it." And then
he's like, "No."
Spock comes in. He's like, "No, that's my boo." And then Spock comes into the room, and he starts this 2-fist punching weird punch thing where
like
he's
he
just
clasps
like,
both
pop,
hands together,
pop.
and he's like hitting her on the left, and then right, and then the left, and her head is, just
whipping back and forth.
Yeah, it's hilarious. I whip my hair back and forth, but yeah, it's like, well, if this was Nancy, would she be able to take this?
Obviously, no. And then Nancy like slaps Spock clear across the room.
Yeah, like a fly.
So it's obvious this isn't Nancy.
Yeah, but still, like McCoy still like won't shoot her.
Yep. So Nancy's shapeshifter moves back in to get Kirk, and then while they're like struggling, it changes its appearance to the salt monster.
Yeah.
And
The real, okay.
And then starts like attaching its suction cups. Starts doing the cupping on it.
This is the shittest.
This is the best costume yet.
No,
what do you mean?
It's horrible. It's shit. It's like a furry suit, kind of like a Yeti, but then it's got green skin, and I can't remember what the eyes look like, but the mouth was like a circle with a bunch of teeth, like a sucker mouth.
Yeah.
And then the icing was the blonde or like grayish hair wig. And it looked ridiculous. It was so ridiculous.
Somebody went down to costuming and was just like, give me whatever you have today.
I mean, whatever you got extra left over, I take this. And yeah, it was awful. It was so bad. It was funny.
So McCoy finally shoots. And didn't she like one last time? She was like, "Oh, yeah, that's don't, right. No, don't."
She turned back into Nancy, so trying to like appeal one last time to Leonard, and then he shoots her again.
And then she's dead.
And she's dead, Jim. and she was killed by the real McCoy.
The real McCoy.
But yeah.
So then up on the bridge, we get what we come to kind of know and love as the Kirk, Spock, McCoy button on an episode where they're all standing around chit-chatting. And they do a lot of like their relationship building, kind of character development stuff in that moment where they pick on Spock sometimes and, they just kind of wrap it all up.
Relief, yeah. And then...
So Kirk says he's thinking about the buffalo.
Yeah.
And then that's it. We leave orbit and go into the credits. So my big theme for this one was like, does a life form have the right to survive? And does a life form have a right to do whatever it takes to survive? Like, does it have a right to kill to survive? Should we be killing cows to make hamburgers?
We don't, yeah.
No.
Yeah. We are not going to die without a cow.
Right.
I mean, every species has a right to survive. Do we have a right to kill? I mean, no, you never have a right to kill. It's never going to be excused, but if that's what you got to do, like if it is like literally survival, like right now we're sitting pretty good. We're not like most of us aren't starving. There's some that are starving.
Mm-hmm.
Truly starving. Like,
yes.
like truly no. There's lots of countries.
Yep.
But they're not killing to survive. I don't know. Maybe they are. I don't know. Yeah.
And when it comes to like my species versus yours, like if you're trying to survive and I'm trying to survive, like in this case, you've got Salt Monster trying to survive and humans trying to survive. And how do you reconcile?
Right.
Who gets what? Like, it's tough.
And then there's only one salt monster.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So that it's not, and that's me assuming that it takes a male and a female,
Right.
or two.
We don't know anything about their reproduction.
We don't.
Yeah.
So because I would think if they know it's the last one, I think it would, and they, if they could procreate without a mate, they would.
Humans would just take that one and find a way to, clone it or something.
Yeah.
Or if there were two left, we'd take those two and try to put them together in a cage.
Oh, that's what reminded me.
Like the first episode.
Yeah, and like, would you want to be forced to copulate with just because you're the last one?
Right.
Would you want to be forced to have sex with someone to make a child just so that you could?
And we do that all the time with animals.
Slave. Yeah. Oh my God, the poor cows and the horses. The what do you call it? The herd animals that we like cows and pigs and horses even. But yeah, it's written in our DNA to try to survive, whether you're a human or a frog. You know what I mean? I mean, every single little
we've
species.
all evolved for survival.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So I mean, and that is just what we do to attain that is just dictated based on our need to survive.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think we're like most humans. Again, we're past that desperate phase of don't know where my next meal is coming from.
Right.
Well, again, some people are living that way.
Yeah.
Something wrong, Captain?
Who are you? Where do you come from?
Have you noted evidence of unusual powers?
What is it that powers your vessel, Captain?
Is there anything else? Why do people have to call inanimate objects she?
That is a very intriguing question.
All right, so now let's bring Becca back in for the exciting answer reveal for the man trap question. The question was...
In this episode, something happened for the first time that would happen 19 more times across the life of this series. What was it?
We said, Bone says, he's dead, Jim.
The answer is Dr. Leonard McCoy, played by actor DeForest Kelley, uttered the famous line, "He's dead, Jim."
Good job. Virtual high five. High five.
Okay, so we got one right.
One right.
Oh, man.
Yeah, I do know stuff about Star Trek.
And if I'm not mistaken, the first utterance was dead Jim.
Ah.
I think he just said, because he was like, Kirk walks up to the body and says whatever Green or whatever his name was. I don't remember now. And crewman, whatever.
The first one,
and
shit, I forgot his name.
And McCoy says, dead Jim.
Well,
I think
that's interesting, and you might be right, because
there's a bunch of different ways he said it.
Reading about
too.
it, I did read that it was he's dead, it's dead, or just dead.
Yeah.
There were different variations of this.
My brain may have filled in the he's in there just
that
because
Mandela effect.
He said it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So what's our next question for Charlie X?
There was a cameo appearance in this episode.
Oh God.
Damn it.
Who was it, and why was it such a special event?
Wait. Let me think. Let me think. Cameo.
I have no idea. I've got nothing on this one.
I'm just trying to remember all the characters.
I vaguely remember the series, but I have no idea. Stay tuned next week for the...
I have no idea. I mean, it's either one of three of the characters.
It's Majel Barrett coming back as Nurse Chapel.
Okay, so the only three people it could be is like maybe one of the two from the Antares, or that floating head from the...
Oh, the floating head.
Was it called the Thasians that appears? You have no idea what I'm talking about.
I have no idea. No. All right.
I don't know. I'm trying to remember a cameo appearance.
Tune in next week to find out.
No. Yeah, I don't know.
No idea.
I give up.
Woohoo!
All right. Well, that's our episode. Before we go, we want to honor the dead. So we're going to lay all these dead crewmen out, and should we pry their eyes open and scream to the sky to let Stavokor know that?
We haven't gotten to Klingons
no, we haven't
yet,
gotten
though.
Damn. I love that part.
And that is my favorite thing about them. But yeah, so we have, may he rest in peace, Crewman Darnell. Crewman Sturgeon. I don't even think I got a good look at his face at all. Poor guy.
He was just there for a hot second.
No, rest in peace. And Crewman Green, who did get quite a bit of airtime being creepy. And then the unknown crewman on the ship who was killed in the hallway. So sad. So sad. And then we've got to say rest in peace. May they rest in peace, Robert Crater and Nancy Crater, who were the cause of all the bullshit anyway. So we've got 6 dead. The body count is 6.
Wow, that's a lot in one episode.
Yeah. I think as we find, as we start actually counting, I think that's probably not that much. So we'll see. We'll revisit that thought later on.
What I'd love to do is like chart these out on a graph too over time, just to kind of see what that looks like. I think that'd be fun.
Yeah. And then we can like determine which one was the bloodiest. Which one was the bloodiest episode?
The bloodiest episode and the worst death. Like, let's figure out who suffered the worst death.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's our episode. We're going to go watch the next one now. For next week, we'll be watching Charlie X. And I'll give you the Paramount Plus. Oh, my God. The episode capsule for this one is fantastic. They really put a lot of thought and energy into this one.
Yeah.
A powerful teenage boy wreaks havoc aboard the Enterprise.
Yeah, that tells me a lot.
That's it. Yep. All right. Well, we'll see you next time on Humanist Trek, where we review and talk about the episode Charlie X.
Live long and prosper.
Humanist Trek is available wherever you replicate your podcasts. Follow us on all the social medias at Humanist Trek. Become a patron at patreon.com/humanisttrek. Send emails to us at podcast@humanisttrek.com and visit our website, humanisttrek.com.